But we still get, snows or freezing rain here. So a lot of cases involve a slip and fall. A lot of them involve, an accident. There's a snowstorm. Somebody slid into somebody else here, who's at fault. I've done flood cases before, the flooding that took place, how much rain fell from the storm. Wind damage cases, a lot of times, the storms that go through, was it a tornado? Was it a straight line of winds? Every case is different. Every case is fascinating.
I'm attorney Dave Craig, managing partner and one of the founders of the law firm of Craig, Kelley Faultless. I've represented people who have been seriously injured or who have had a family member killed in a semi or other big truck wreck for over 30 years. Following the wreck, their lives are chaos. Often they don't even know enough about the process to ask the right questions. It is my goal to empower you by providing you with the information you need to protect yourself and your family. In each and every episode, I will interview top experts and professionals that are involved in truck wreck cases. This is After the Crash. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of After the Crash. Today we have Randy Ollis. We're excited to have Randy. Randy is a known celebrity in the state of Indiana. Has been with us in our households for years and years and years. And I'm excited to have Randy on today to talk about the forensic aspects of weather and how that relates to cases and how you bring expertise into that area. But before we do, welcome, Randy.
Yeah, David, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. Just throw me some softball-sized questions, and we'll have a good time. So,
well, as long as you don't ask me my name, we're good. So it'll be.
Okay. Should I call you Dave or David? I should ask.
It doesn't make any difference. It I answer to both, and I'm just grateful when I get called one of the two, and not something else.
Or as they say, call me anything, just don't call me late for dinner. I guess that's the main thing. So,
well, Randy, how did you get into your field? I mean, was it something that you always knew you had an interest in? Let's just start off with some background and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, just real quick here, David, I grew up in the Chicagoland area. I've always been a weather geek, always. I mean, as a youngster, I used to take my mother's kettle, put it out on our back porch at home in Elgin, Illinois. And every time it would rain or snow, I'd stick a ruler in there. I'd measure the rain, measure the snow. I had a big weather chart on my bedroom wall at home, and I'd write down the high for the day, the low, how much rain, how much snow. Every once in a while, I would call the TV weather man in Chicago and say, hey, this is Randy in Elgin. I had, 3 inches of rain or whatever. So I was at a very early age, a weather watcher. I'll be honest with you, though, I was a young weather geek. Now I'm an old weather geek, and I still love weather. I mean, it's been my passion in life here. I never thought for 1 second I'd end up in broadcasting. I thought I'd go to school, get a degree, and do something else. I don't know, but that's how it turned out. I've been in broadcasting my whole career.
I know you went to Northern Illinois University where you got your degree, correct?
Yes, I did. In fact, I graduated back then in 1978. I'll do the math for you, save you time. I know it's a big numbers. I'm 66 years old, semi-retired at Wish TV. But when I was in college, my junior year, they had a student-run newscast. Nobody wanted to do the weather back then. So I was young, naive. Now I'm old and naive. But I said, I'll do it. So that's how I got my start in my junior and senior year on our little student-run newscast. That's how I became a weatherman. So
you always knew you wanted to go into meteorology.
Yes.
And it wasn't until you had that experience that you actually thought about doing it on the news.
Yeah, it's just something that fell in my lap here. I never thought for a second that I ended up broadcasting. I always thought it was for, someone better than me. My dad was a factory worker, 40 plus years. Mom worked in the grocery store. And I thought, boy, if I can just get into college, that's a great accomplishment for our family here. But, I always feel like God has a plan for everybody's life. And my junior, senior year, that's how I got my foot in the door broadcasting. As soon as I graduated, is right at the time when a lot of TV stations were hiring their own specialists, their own meteorologists. So I got a job right out of college in Wausau, Wisconsin, at a small TV station for a year. And I gradually moved on from there.
And then I think you went to Dayton next, and then eventually you ended up in Indianapolis. And when did you start in Indianapolis?
Yeah, great question. I started back in the fall of '84. And it was exactly when the Colts came to town too. So I always kid around and say that Mr. Irsay, when he's negotiating, says, "Look, we'll bring the team if you bring this weather guy Ollis to Indiana." So just kidding, but I started about the same time with the Colts. They're going to be around a lot longer than I am here, but I've been at Channel 8 to be 38 years this September.
And tell me a little bit about that. I mean, I know, like, as an attorney, I always wanted to be an attorney. I just kind of felt that. I read when I was in high school. I used to read novels and things that had to do with law. And so I wasn't sure I was smart enough to be a lawyer, but I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. And I tell people, honest to God, getting up every single day and doing what I do is a blessing. I love doing what I do. It's so easy to get up in the morning when you know that you love it. You have a great team of people, but you're also helping and working with people. Yeah, you obviously must love it if you've been doing this.
I do. I've spoken to many schools here in my career, many groups, and I always tell the kids, them, go after your passion in life. Many people, David, unlike you and me, they hate their job. They get up, they go from one job to the next. You're different. I'm different here. We found our passion early in life, and I always tell the kids, I say, kids, go after that passion. If you could do a job and not get paid for it, don't tell my boss I said this, but not get paid for it, and you'd still enjoy doing it, that's what probably you should go after in life. So you get paid for doing what you do. You love it. I get paid for doing what I do. I love it here. People tell me, David, they say, "Hey, Randy, why don't you fully, retire and, go after your hobbies or your passion in life?" And I tell them why. I said, "I'm doing my hobbies, my passion in life right now, getting paid for it. I enjoy weather. I never met a storm I didn't like. Every storm is different. So for me, I've been very blessed to be able to go in broadcasting to survive this long. I have branched out with TV. I do some radio still as well. I do consulting on the side with you guys and other attorneys too. So I have been very, very fortunate to go down the path I've been down."
And before we get into the forensic side of it, I mean, I know your role has kind of changed over there at Channel 8. So tell us a little bit, bring us up to date. What are you doing now and how has that changed?
Yeah, I'll just be honest with you here, David. I hope I'm honest or I'm talking to an attorney. But I'm semi-retired. March of last year, so my contract ran out right when I turned 65. And the station at Channel 8, they were really nice to me. So they didn't boot me out the door. I was ready for a change. I think they're ready for a change here too. And so long story short, I'm semi-retired, but Channel 8 was nice enough to keep me on as a full-time employee, even though I go in for about 3.5, 4 hours a day, but I still get their health insurance, which is fantastic there. They kept me on, vacation schedules. I get that. And, health care and 401k. So I'm really fortunate to do that. So anyway, I signed on, and it's no big deal to me. I signed on, and I plan on fully retiring probably in August, at the end of August of next year. So that's the plan. It's never etched in stone, Who knows what a year will bring. I went through a cancer ordeal about 5 years ago, and so far I'm doing just fine. But I'm like you. I enjoy my passion in life. I'm just blessed to be able to go part-time at the station. They know that I do consulting on the side. It was in my contract that I could do this as long as it doesn't interfere with my station responsibility. So I'm blessed. I am blessed in more ways than one.
Well, I know you have a great social media following too, because my wife is one of them. I told her I was talking to you today, and she's like, "Well, ask him if he had breakfast over at some place." I'm like, "I don't know where he has breakfast at." She goes,
"Just Judy." I just came from there. I had a quick lunch, and I had to call in and have him have my grilled cheese sandwich waiting for me there. I said, "I got to get going. I have a Zoom to do." But Just Judy's a little place on Binford Boulevard.
My wife asked me about it. She's like, I go, "How do you know where he eats?" "I don't know."
We have fun with it. In fact, we brought Judy in on our TV show, Lifestyle Live, last Friday morning.
Okay.
So she came in, and that's just, that's how Channel 8 is. It's a family station. And, we're here for the people and the community. And again, I'm blessed to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I know that. So on the forensic side of it, as an injury attorney, so I represent victims of serious semi-wrecks and other car wrecks and slip and falls and a variety of different things.
Yep.
And so when you're hiring an expert, there's different ways you go about doing it. And so, one of the things is there's some lawyers who pick people who will tell them what they want to hear. And there's a lot of lawyers out there, or there's a lot of experts that make a living just telling people what they want to be told. And the problem with that is that I believe that the best way to help my clients is to be truthful and to be honest with the jury. And because people are smart, they can see through it. And so the best way to hurt your case is to get somebody who fudges. So when I look for experts, the first thing I do is look at somebody, how credible are they? Because I'm entrusted with this person's life, their livelihood, their medical bills, maybe their lost wages, maybe their future medical bills, future wages. And so I take that role very seriously. And so we look for experts that are honest, who are reputable, who can communicate. And then also, oftentimes those experts work on both sides, because if you're honest and you're fair, you're not going to pick one side or the other necessarily.
That's right.
And so years ago, I can't even remember how long ago it was for the first case we reached out to you. We thought when we had a weather issue, there was no better person that fit that criteria than you. And so we reached out to you years ago. But I'm curious, how did you get into forensic work? Because that is different than what you were doing. And how did you first get into it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Boy, it's been many years ago. When I was working at a TV station in Dayton, Ohio, some attorney called me. I was really green back then, and I think he just flipped me around when I had to go into court there, and he had a little fun with me. Not that I'm an expert great by now, but I've learned a lot over the years here on how, the attorneys deal with you and things like that. So anyway, when I was young, just starting my career, I did a couple of court cases back in Dayton, Ohio. I went to a television station in Oklahoma City. I really didn't do much there. Long story short, I was only there for 2 years. But when I came to Indianapolis in '84, I had learned a lot from Dayton, Ohio, not only about, forensic meteorology, but my boss also had his own business on the side. And I really thought that's a cool thing to do. So when I signed on with Wish in '84, I said, look, I would like to do, a little consulting on the side, court cases, radio on the side, whatever. And again, Channel 8 has been great all the way through. They gave me permission to do it. I'm still doing it here as long as it doesn't interfere with my station responsibilities. And I will say this too, David, and that is if a court case came up, sometimes I have to run it by management, because if it's a big public case, that's in the public eye, they won't let me do it because we can't, split the audience out there. And I totally get it. And I'm sure you understand too.
Sure.
That's rare that happens. But if it was a huge case, where the cameras are there from TV stations, I would not be called for a witness just because of my exclusivity to Wish TV and Channel 8. But that's how I got my start back then. And then when I came to Indy in '84, I enjoyed doing it. And again, I learned from my boss in Dayton, Ohio. He's a great guy. He knew weather inside and out. Probably learned more from him than I did when I was in college, because he had been doing it for several years there, and I have just kept doing it. So I don't. How do I say this? I enjoy doing it. I'm fascinated with your field. I really am here. Every case is different, and you always put together, what happened, what took place, who's telling the truth, who's not telling the truth. And like you, I just tell it the way it is. It may not be what you want to hear, but honesty is the best way. If you're not honest, it's going to come back to bite you down the road here. I'm rambling on, but I had an attorney. I go both ways. I go for the plaintiff. I go for the defendant too. I had an attorney contact me. It's been probably 2 or 3 months ago. He was representing an insurance company, and somebody was making a claim because they had hail damage on their roof. And the attorney for the insurance company, he came out and said, this guy's waited so long for this claim. We just think he's fudging it, and it really didn't happen. Could you check into it? Well, I checked into it, and the attorney didn't like what I had to say. And I said, no, the guy's right. I found that there were several places in the county where he lived that there was large hail that day, and that was it. The attorney knew that, hey, I had to pay for this, but it's worth getting, paying for it just to find out the truth, what really happened.
Absolutely. As the good attorneys, the reputable attorneys on both sides want to know the truth, or they want to know how strong a case they have. there's nothing worse than finding out 3 years into a case that suddenly it's bad because you've put all that time and effort and energy into it. And so you want to find that out. And so the good lawyers will invest the money and hire regardless of what kind of experts, whether it's reconstructionist, whether it's a meteorologist, whether it's an engineer or mechanic. You want to hire those people quickly so that you can find out how strong a case you have.
And one thing too, David, with me as well, I try to be quick and pretty simple with a case here. I know how some guys just get so detailed, and they go into, and I know very rarely does it make it to court, but it does. Occasionally you have to go to court there and testify. And sometimes it just goes right over the jury's head, and they have no clue what's going on. So I try to make it simple. And also when you guys contact me, a lot of people procrastinate. I'm just the opposite. Whenever an attorney calls me, I always say, hey, give me 2 or 3, 4 days. Are you okay with that? And usually you say, oh, okay, but I want to get it done now because I don't like to have things pile up. Not that I rush through the case, but I want to get it done. So you have plenty of time to look it over and, just see where we're going here. And so I try to be quick with it when the attorneys call me and try to be simple too and get it to you guys. So I've enjoyed doing it. And again, I'm fascinated with your field here as an attorney because just like the weather forecast, every storm is different. There's no 2 storms exactly the same. With you guys here, every case is different here. No 2 cases are exactly the same. It's fun and it's challenging, but you got to think. You really have to think.
Well, one of the things that I would say too is for those folks listening is that it's not always black and white. I mean, you'll have people who will tell you witnesses, and some people think, well, they're lying.
Yeah.
And I first of all, I like to believe that they're not lying, that no one's lying. And sometimes people do lie, but I look at it first from the standpoint of, well, is it possible that they're just wrong? There's a difference between being wrong and lying. And so, and I always use an example. Like I used to have 8 seats in the first turn of the Indianapolis 500, and we would go there every year. And one year, Ari Lyondike wrecked right in front of us, and we were all 8 of us. We saw parts of it, and we all said, "Oh, who we thought was to blame." We're all like, "Can you believe this?" And the funny thing is, we all had different recollection. We were blaming different people, and we described the wreck differently. Although all 8 of us were sitting there and saw it at the same time. And the funny thing was when we got home, none of us were exactly right. So what happens is that your mind then puts it together based upon the snippet that it sees, and then it puts it together. And then once you say it, it kind of becomes the facts. And so as a trained lawyer, my job is to listen to what people say, but discount it somewhat and say, okay, well, let's go back and let's find out for sure. If these folks are saying there's packed snow on the highway, and somebody says, no, there's not, maybe they saw things differently. It doesn't necessarily mean they're lying, but maybe they saw it differently. And that's why it's so important to actually reach out to somebody who's objective and say, okay, tell me. And I think that's an example of a case that we would use you on. Let's say that a semi is under the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations says that when it has hazardous conditions, they must use extreme caution. So a semi driver has to use extreme caution when they're faced with that. The CDL manual would say if the pavement's wet, then they should decrease their speed by 1/3. If they're driving on packed snow, they should decrease their speed by 50%. And if it's ice, they should get off the road as soon as they can. So a wreck happens involving a semi in adverse weather. And there may be different witnesses who describe it differently. And so one of my challenges is, okay, well, let's find out what the weather was. And that's where we may call a meteorologist and say, and if I gave you that case, kind of walk the people through how would you figure that out? What would you do?
Well, I jump on it right away. I try to get going while it's still fresh in my mind here. That's another important thing too. The longer you wait, you kind of forget some of the details. But you say, "Hey, Randy, we have a case for you." Of course, I always say, "Well, what's going on. I got to know the city, where this took place. I got to know the time of the day that the incident did occur." So you give me that information. I have different sites that I go to here. I mean, it's available to everybody, but as a so-called weather expert, I can pretty much interpret what was happening during that situation there. But you call me, you give me the details, the time, the city, that, then boom, I'll go into. I've got a bookmark right up there on my computer, these different sites to go to, And, I'll go to the National Climate Data Center there. They call it NCDC. And that's where they keep a lot of weather data from past years. I mean, there's other sites you can go to. I can go out and look at the old forecast for that day and see what the Weather Service was, calling for. Do they have a winter storm warning out? Do they have a winter storm watch? I can get the hourly reports as well. You tell me what time, and I can get probably within a half hour, 15 minutes or so, the weather observation to tell you exactly what was going on. Sometimes I can't get right to where the accident took place, but I can get pretty close to it. And I'll get 2 or 3 or 4 sites surrounding that there just to make sure it all lines up. And you can also get, radar reports too. You get storm reports. There's all kinds of information you can get. You got to know where to go. But when you call me, boom, I go to it. And again, that's my thing. I want to get going here while it's fresh in my mind. And I always want to see, you'll tell me what the situation is, and I'll look at it and say, was it really snowing there or not? And but there's a lot of tools that we use in putting the pieces of the puzzle together to find out, if they were telling the truth or not. But like you said, a lot of times it's not that they're lying; it's just the way they see it in their mind here. So that's why, the weather data doesn't lie. I just say this is the way it was, and then I'll write my so-called expert opinion to is what I think was taking place. Or I did a deposition for you guys here a few months ago. And it was an accident, it was snowing and stuff like that. And I just gave my expert opinion as to what I thought that took place during that time. So,
and tell me how you like that. And so my dad was a psychologist, and so he was like the first one in the family who'd gone to college, and he was a psychologist. And so he thought one day that maybe he kind of liked what I did. So he's like, I'll try forensic. So I will try testifying. And he hated it because people were the lawyers brought him in, cross-examined him. And he's like, and then he had to go to trial. And he's like, there's easier ways to make a living than being an expert witness. What is it? How you must like it if you're going through depositions. And I assume, have you ever testified at trial?
Oh yeah. I've done it quite a few times in trial. I've done the deposition, and, the trials, as you say, you just answer the question. You can get in trouble when you start expanding out. I've learned that the hard way. Answer the question here, Randy. But I've been to trial quite a few times here. And, I'm not saying I'm the best or the greatest expert around, because I know you guys are going to come at me and you're going to try to get me to say something that's going to support their side. So I'm always truthful. I'm not going to spin it. I'm not going to spin it to, just twist it this way or that way. But I will tell you what I think. And I know when they did the deposition here, a few months ago, I just repeated over and over again what I thought, how much snow fell, when it fell, over and over again, just to tell the opposing attorney, this is the way I see it, and you're not going to change my mind. This is what the facts are stating. So, and again, I guess you have to be a special person. You can ask my wife here. I like to argue with people sometimes, and but you got to be an extrovert too. I don't introvert. I don't know if they'd like to do this or not.
Yeah.
So the personality type of the person you put up on the stand plays a critical role in that as well. But I'm okay. Everything's open. The opposing attorney, I know they're going to come at me here, but that's part of your job. It really is. And for me, like you, David, the truth. Just tell them the truth. Give them your expert opinion, and so be it. Let it go on. So
absolutely, I think. And then just the experts, if they're prepared and they're thorough and you're honest, it's so much easier because all you're doing is sticking with what you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a lot easier than people who are playing games.
Yeah, and even with the attorneys too, all you guys are different. Every attorney is different. I did a case, I think it was last year, where I did have to go to court in Bloomington, and this was representing the defendant. I won't say who I was defending or anything like that, but they won the case. And boy, every attorney is different, but he had me prepared left and right. I mean, detail after detail. And I thought, wow, I've never seen anything like this before. But again, every attorney is different. It probably paid off. That's why he won the case here, because he was prepared. So, again, I was fascinated with that case. I'm fascinated with your cases here. And it's just, everyone is different. And I really do enjoy doing that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what type of cases. I mean, so the different types of cases, because there's a lot of different types of cases that involve weather.
Yeah.
And so what kind of cases, and without going into the names, obviously, or the attorneys, what type of cases have you worked on?
Well, I tell you what, here, there's a lot of slip and falls that take place. Indiana, of course, we get, just enough snow to slick it up. Doesn't take much. The winters lately haven't been nearly as bad as I think we're into a little bit of a warm cycle. I'm not a huge fan of global warming, whatever, but I think a lot of it is cyclical in that. But we still get, snows or freezing rain here. So a lot of cases involve a slip and fall. A lot of them involve, an accident. There's a snowstorm. Somebody slid into somebody else here, who's at fault, blah, blah, blah. Also, I've done flood cases before. There's a heavy rain event in Montgomery County, whatever. There's this flooding that took place, how much rain fell from the storm. Wind damage cases, a lot of times, the storms that go through, was it a tornado? Was it a straight line of winds? A lot of times it doesn't matter because there's damage is done. But it's always nice to know if it was, a tornado or straight line winds that came through. So there's different events here. Oh, I had a case as well. There was, I believe, a school. It's been several years ago, and they had heat stroke. They're out running cross country, and I think one or two of the runners passed out, and there was lawsuits that came because they shouldn't have been, running or practicing whatever they're doing. So they needed an expert to say, how warm was it? So I had to find out the temperature at the time when these guys were training, and also, what was the temperature on the pavement where they're running as well? Because that's a big difference too. Was it sunny? Was it cloudy? So there's all different angles where you can go. And again, I'll say it again, every case is different. Every case is fascinating. We're not perfect. We just do the best we can. But I'm with you. Honesty is the key thing. If I had to bend it or twist it, I wouldn't do it. I'm not going to do it. I have to answer to God, some of these days here. And so I just say, this is the way I see it. And this is my expert opinion. But yeah, boy, from heat strokes, I'm trying to think, had a barn destroyed once from a storm. So, they need winds, how strong the winds were. And so it really does, veer off to many elements when it comes to weather.
Well, I can tell you that, from my standpoint, obviously honesty, but the families that I represent, sometimes their family member is killed in an accident, and a semi-tractor trailer or an 18-wheeler or whatever kills them. And they come to me, and the first question they always ask, and it's the same. I've been doing this for over 35 years. And the first question they always ask me is, what happened? Why did this happen? And they don't know, they don't know anything. All they've heard is maybe they've heard stuff on the news. If it's a bad catastrophic accident, they see the news clips, they talk to the police a little bit. And sometimes, I can help these folks. And so I hire people like you, I hire experts, and we find out what happened. But then there's other times when I have to tell them that I can't help them, that it's their own family member's fault. And I can honestly say that they are okay. I've never had somebody react badly to me telling them they didn't have a case, because I believe most people are good people. Most people are honest people, and they just want to know what happened. And so I feel like we're doing a good. I may invest and lose several $1,000s, but that's okay. It's part of my business. I lose money sometimes, and that's okay, because I can give a family some closure, some peace of mind.
Absolutely.
And so we can tell them if the roads are bad, and the client, I do an ECM download of the car, and I find out it's a Mustang and it's doing 80 miles an hour, and you tell me there's ice on the road and there's snow, then I go back and say, I'm sorry, I couldn't help you. And that's, I think that's the best way to be, is just straightforward and honest about it.
Totally. I wish everybody was like you here, but I know a lot of them are. But honesty, I'm with you. Honesty is the key thing. You have to tell it the way it is. And I think it's great that you'll bring closure to families here and let them know what you think that took place. So, and
other times you're able to help them, and so, what's the most interesting case, if you can say, what you've actually testified, one that you found really, any case that sticks out in your mind that you think you've already testified on that was fascinating to you?
Oh boy, I don't know, because most of them are just, like the slip and fall cases here, the traffic accidents during a snowstorm. I'm just, trying to think. I remember I had to go up and testify in Kokomo for a case, and I know how do I say? I know how the judges are. They're the boss, you know what I'm saying? So this is kind of funny, but it was a case. and I had the morning newscast and I had the noon show to do. And so I had to get back for the noon show. And it turned out where the judge wanted to call it quits for the day. And he said, you got to come back tomorrow. And I said, I can't come back tomorrow. I have to do the noon show. And he says, we're doing tomorrow at such and such a time. Okay. So, it's going to cost them more to get me back up there, my time and everything else. But I said, you're the boss, you're the judge and that. So I remember racing back up there, getting on the stand, finishing my testimony. It only took maybe another half hour, 45 minutes. I was done, hopped in the car, raced back. I got back to the station like 5 minutes before news time here and got on for the noon weather. I just thought it was so crazy. We could have finished it in half an hour that day, but he had to go play golf or something. He made me come back, risk my career, missing the show, but I made it. I got back like with 5 minutes to spare and everything turned out okay.
Like you said, just like weathermen are different, lawyers are different, but judges are different as well.
Yeah.
And some are a lot more flexible than others. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So now do you work obviously you worked in Ohio originally, did some forensic work. Are you doing forensic work? Because I have an audience of people listen to this all over. Do you do it just in Indiana or are you doing forensic work all over the country?
That's a great question. I'm semi-retired, so I really don't go knocking on doors, trying to get, business here, there, whatever. And I'm going to be fully retired in about another year or so. But yeah, I could, with the weather information that's available, I could do it really anywhere around the country. So, if there's somebody out there that, needs a weather expert, a meteorologist, I have my 4-year degree. I'd be glad to help them out if I can. I don't think I'll ever get overwhelmed or not. But, if they do need, an expert opinion, or whatever, just give me a holler. And because the weather data is there, you just need to know where to go find it. And I'd be glad to help others out if I can.
And not only have to find it, but then you have to be able to communicate it to people and so they understand it. And I think
interpret it too, So
you have to interpret it and then communicate it so people understand what you're talking about. And that's the key. Are you going to retire completely, or are you going to still do the forensic work? Do you know?
That's a great question. I always say my agent, God, he'll tell me what to do, But that's a great question. It's not etched in stone, but I think I'll be fully done with broadcasting August of next year. I do not want to sit in this chair and do nothing. I don't want to do that here. I want to keep going, whether it's, volunteer work, maybe I like to do speaking engagements as well, and even forensic work too. So, if cases came along when I'm fully retired, I'd love to see that as well, so maybe I'll have more time to do that as I push into full retirement here shortly. So I just don't, as long as I keep my health, I want to keep going. So I've seen, and you have too, I'm sure, David, horror stories where people retire, they do nothing, and a month later they're gone.
Yeah.
So you got to keep this sharp. You got to keep going. I work out all the time. I walk or jog or whatever. And to answer your question, yes, if some forensic work came along when I'm fully retired, I think I'd enjoy doing it. I'd actually have more time to do it. Maybe my reports get longer and longer.
Well, I think, like you said, I think as long as you love it, and as long as it doesn't become a hassle, I think that's the key. I love doing what I do. I get asked the same question. I was sick not too long ago with similar to your situation. Yep. And I thought, some people look at that and I just looked at it and said, if I'm blessed enough to go forward, then I'm going to continue doing what I'm passionate about. Thank goodness I didn't have to re-examine my life and say, I'm doing something I don't like doing. I love what I'm doing. My daughter's a lawyer here. My son's a lawyer here. My wife runs my practice. I got my other son, Bobby, who's doing the video work on this. I work with him all the time. And so I'm very, very fortunate. And it's like, why would I want, maybe slow down, maybe travel a little bit more. I could see that. But like you, as long as you're doing what you love,
I agree.
Then why not continue to do it? So I hope you do, because you do a fantastic job.
Well, I enjoy doing it. Again, you're blessed, but you know you're blessed. There's a lot of people who are blessed and they don't know it, but you know it. And I know that I'm blessed here as well. And so, who knows what happens in the year. The station may say, hey, can you fill in for someone on vacation? There's that possibility too. We'll see what happens with time when time comes here. So.
You probably like not getting up so early in the morning, at least.
Oh, I'll tell you what, I used to get up for over 30 years around 2:30 or 3 o'clock every morning. Now I sleep until about 5:40, which is great. It really is great. I can actually make it to about 9 o'clock at night without falling asleep now. I had to do a speaking engagement this past Friday morning. I had to get up at 4:30, which isn't too bad, but it just reminded me, boy, how did I do it all those years at 2:30 or 3 o'clock? Oh. And so it's worked out good for me, for the station, everybody else to be semi-retired, to gradually coast into full retirement. So I'm excited to see what the next year is going to bring. I really am. I don't know where it's going to go, but again, I'm like you. This is my passion. I don't want to sit around and do nothing. I know some friends who sit around and do nothing and they love it. I can't do it. I don't say I'm a workaholic, but I want to keep busy. I want to help people. I want to minister to people. And so we'll see what happens in a year or so.
Well, Randy, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the work you've done for my clients, and certainly appreciate you being a guest on After the Crash. I mean, people ask me, like, why are you doing this? Why aren't you slowing down? Why are you doing a podcast? and then I was like, because if there's somebody out there that has a question and they don't understand something that we do, information can be power. And I don't care if they're in California, they're not hiring me. At least maybe they'll know, okay, maybe should we hire a weather expert? Should we hire a reconstructionist or a mechanic? And so, I feel like one of my purposes is to get out information and inform people and let them know what their rights are, how to pick people. And so I appreciate very much you being on here and helping me further that goal.
David, I just say thanks from the bottom of my heart. You guys have called me many times here, probably way, way more than anybody else has. So over the years, I appreciate that. I hope we can keep this going. And again, you stay honest, I'll stay honest too, and I think we'll be A-okay.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
This is David Craig, and you've been listening to After the Crash. If you'd like more information about me or my law firm, please go to our website, ckflaw.com. Or if you'd like to talk to me, you can call 1-800-ASK-DAVID. If you would like a guide on what to do after a truck wreck, then pick up my book, Semi-Truck Wreck, a guide for victims and their families, which is available on Amazon, or you can download it for free on our website, ckflaw.com.